What's up, bookworms? Welcome to episode 89 of the Cantina Book Club podcast, where readers can find interviews with authors of all genres, trad or indie published. I'm Megan, self-proclaimed content queen, here to bring you insights from the authors themselves. Each week features a Cantina conversation with an author. Sometimes they're returning guests, sometimes it's someone new. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on an episode, and feel free to browse through existing episodes so that you could catch a previous interview about a book you finished. Just a heads up that I often use adult language to express my feelings towards these authors and their work, whether the characters need to get their shit together or and burn the world down. Just please be mindful around listening ears. And also, it's June, happy Pride Month to all who celebrate. Cantina Book Club is an LGBTQ plus friendly space. Keep an eye out on my social media for book suggestions if you want to support authors in the LGBTQ plus community. Check out previous interviews and keep an eye out just to see the next guest could be your favorite author or someone from that community. So happy Pride. For all of you Chicagoland Midwest readers, I'm going to be a panelist at Books in Bloom, taking place July 11th and 12th at the Sonesta Chicago O'Hare in Rosemont, Illinois. The event is hosted by Chicago North romance writers. For details and tickets, visit chicagobooksinbloom.com. I really hope to see you guys there. Today's episode features a chat with Katherine Reay. We're talking about the English masterpiece. That book is available on June 10th. I welcome back Katherine Reay. I've interviewed her before. I've read her work before, and at this point, I'm biased. I will recommend her books to anybody who loves historical and the English piece includes the mystery and the espionage and historical fiction of it all, plus like corruption and greed and deeper. And I loved it. I am a fan of her work, so I will always recommend it. And I just really appreciated catching up with her and getting to know her processes and how she's grown as a writer and all the fun research that she's done and all that good stuff. Without further ado, here is. So today we've got Katherine, masterpiece. That book is available 10th. Katherine, good to talk to you again. Good to see you again. I was so excited to have another opportunity for another one of your works to come across my desk because I was so excited. I loved Berlin Letters and I loved our conversation. The bar is set high for you. Sorry, not sorry. I'm going to be a little biased from here on out, but I'm excited to dig a little bit deeper again today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I am so glad this worked out that you invited me back. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. I was so excited and I knew what to expect, that it would be a good story. And it's like with historical fiction, women's fiction, it could be like a little, but you've got it down where it was appropriately paced, and we'll get into it. But I just, the characters, the development, the story, heist in there, a little touch of romance too. Can't forget about that.
Exactly.
A little funny. So, yeah, to get started, could you make a summary of the book so that listeners can follow along?
Yeah. Okay. So it is April 1973, 2 weeks after Picasso has died, and the world is clamoring to honor the most famous artist of the 20th century. The Tate Gallery in London is putting on an intimate exhibition class, and Lily Summers is the assistant keeper, what we would call in the United States an assistant curator. And she helps put together this show. She walks in at the morning of the opening and she looks at a painting out loud. That's a forgery. It is a scandal of proportions, and Lily better figure out who forged that painting before she is blamed for the crime, basically.
Yeah, I almost didn't see it coming where you were going with that because it's dual POV.
Mm-hmm.
So we get connected with first person POV with Lily and then third person POV with Diane. So I loved how you did that because readers, we see what's going on that Lily has no idea about. And I thought it's a really cool way of storytelling where we can the readers were seeing the bigger picture, and unfortunately we're like, no, Lily, no.
Don't walk through that door.
What are you doing? So
Can you go over what draws you to, like, historical fiction or, like, the
Mm.
women's fiction or kind of because I think with historical fiction, I'm like, I love it, and I feel like it's such a cool genre, but also it's heavy. Like, you gotta do a lot of research, you gotta know what you're talking
Yeah,
about, and
that is so
there
true.
a bunch of different ways you could go with it, so I wanna explore that a little bit.
Yeah, my first, like, 7 novels are contemporary fiction, and I loved that, but then I dove into historical, and I have to say I think I've found my space here, and part of it is, as you're saying, the heavy research of historical fiction. I love that. I love bringing those facts to life and making them feel relevant in some way today. For instance, this is 1973 London. So I'm taking readers to a time and a place that maybe they remember, maybe they don't, but they've seen the great fashion of the time. We know the great music of the time. But it's really interesting to see, okay, what was the art world at that time? What were women's lives like at that time? What was society like? That's very looking at London specifically, but we face a lot of the same challenges today and we feel the same today. And it's really interesting to take a time period and say, okay, this is what's happening in this kind of microcosm in the past, and yet you can relate to it. And I love that bridge between the past and the present. And in many ways, I think it makes a lot of those emotions that we were talking about and that character development even more approachable because from our armchairs, it might even feel safer approaching some of those feelings or whatever it is, just that bridge to kind of humanity across decades, etc. So it's a
Absolutely,
blabby answer.
because yeah, well, it's appropriate because with your 2 main characters, because Diana, she's established herself and she's very, like, high standards for herself, and as we're getting to know her, we kinda see why. It's almost like a front,
Yeah.
and obviously, we wanna be a little spoiler free. As we're getting to know, like, her background and who she is, it's yeah, we see, like, how high the stakes are for her.
Mhm.
Whereas Lily, the stakes are so high for her as well, but she's still young, which could be worse or not as bad. Like,
Yeah.
in comparison, it could really go either like, she's, what, like, in her late 20s, right, I
Yep.
think?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ye
Yeah, so for context, Diana Gilden is Lily Summers' boss. I don't think I ever said that, and I'm sorry about that. She
Okay,
is the
yes, thank you.
curator. She's the curator in the story of the modern collections for the Tate Gallery in London. And you're right, the stakes are super high for her. There were no women keepers. She's a keeper at that time, and she's the only one. And really is extraordinary. And as I said, this is the world's most famous artist. So everything comes down on her. So you're absolutely right,
Yeah.
stakes for her.
When they knew how almost impossible this was. Like they hear of Picasso's death and okay, we're gonna do an exhibit in 2 weeks. And they're like, no, we're gonna do this. It's gonna be like it seems impossible, but they were gonna make it happen no matter what. And they knew that it had to be like impeccable, like it had to be perfect, like flawless. And it was the big day. And so that made it like that whole moment where Lily just word vomit. It was the absolute worst thing to happen, and by her assistant, like,
Mhm.
it was yeah, and so then it's like, you can't help but compare the 2, but and just to get a little bit underneath the layers is because they both Lily's story as well is heartbreaking too, and
Yeah,
it's a little bit complicated, where a lot is writing on her job, but for more from, like, a supporting her family standpoint, also in her personal relationships, it's almost like lingering like PTSD a little bit, like, where she can't
I think it
it's
is.
it's affecting yeah, herself and the decisions she's made since the incident and with her family years ago, and it was just so heartbreaking. I loved following that, her coming out because she once she learned to let go and forgive herself and really open up,
Yeah.
she, like, came into her own, and that was so fun to see. That was so fun to
Yes.
watch, and it's almost like looking at Diana's situation, it was like watching these 2 women who had to go through life struggles, and they ended up really, really differently. It's Lily still had her family, but I had
We're not
I
sure
had
what
her
Diane has.
she had her I don't know if it's a spoiler, she had her, like, groomer husband, and that was like she had him, and that's unfortunately, it was sad because. like you were saying, having readers relate to their situations, like you said, like maybe their specific situations, like we can't relate to them, but I think the sentiment is there
I
where
think it is too.
it's how, yeah, like what path we choose or we go along, or the path that chooses us, and how does that turn out 10, 15 years down the line? Before you know it, she was in over her head. It all they became too big for their britches, and
Yeah.
it was just
And it was
wild.
it's also perspective, like examining her perspective and how it translated over the years to her older sister, Daisy's perspective, to her mother's perspective. And I thought I had really a lot of fun in many ways examining that. You look at one incident in three lives, say, how differently they perceive that and how differently that is translated, and even how that affects the way they view each other in current time. It
Yeah.
is really interesting because I agree with you. It doesn't need to be that incident. It can be any incident in our past, and others in our family or close friends view it differently. We all carry it differently.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also because there's the age significance too, because
Mhm.
there's that 10-year age gap between Lily and her sister. And then her sister is like, even when we meet Lily, her sister's got family and her own like husband and kids, and still doing that middle generation thing where you're still taking care of your parents, but then you've got little ones at home, and
Yeah.
she's still doing that. And I felt for Lily too, because it is a time period where her father's job security is not necessarily there, and she keeps, because of the people that she, in her line of work, it's the people have money, like
Yes. And she,
the patrons, the
Mhm.
donors, the people who enjoy art, it's because they can afford not to worry. Hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah. That's
they have that space for art, and so got the money, and not, and she had to hide that self from her, like she had to pretend. And she's even it's, I think I wrote in some of my notes, like imposter syndrome in like 1970s London, like but it's so true.
It is so true. And I was talking to someone and they were saying that 1970s London was a much smaller society. The city is much more cosmopolitan. It grew tremendously in the 1980s. But, and that the building that she lives in is actually true, was a government scheme back in the 1800s for low cost housing in one of the poshest neighborhoods in London. And that's where I got that idea, because it's a real place which gives her that postcode, gives her that neighborhood. And she points out that she didn't even know these doors existed until all of a sudden she has this address that seems her stature in some weird way, and she can look into
It's
these
wild.
doors.
It's crazy
Yeah,
because that is,
true.
it's so true along generations, along geography, different countries, different time periods. That there is that status of a zip code or that your postcode, and it's so true. Like people will see, oh, they're from that side of the tracks, and then
Right.
they all, no matter what, they have their preconceived notions about you,
Mhm.
whether or not it might be accurate. Because
Really,
hers was,
rarely does
yeah,
it matter. It's accurate.
maybe you learn a little bit more street smarts one way
Yeah.
versus the other, but like yeah, exactly. It's again, what paths choose us, how do we approach that, how do we deal with that, how do we navigate that? That's why I think I like the historical fiction, is how you were saying, you see the real things, and you're, what can I do with that, and how's that going to play into her background and like how she approaches the world. I and plus I'm a dork too, where I think it's just so fun to learn about things that I'm not familiar with. And I always joke, I enjoy reading things that like make me feel a little bit smarter when I'm finished with it. So, but that's what a lot of reading is, even if it's like
Yeah.
fiction or nonfiction. You get like perspectives that I think adds this that other layer to it, because there's so many like stories to tell, in
Yeah.
especially post World War II. Because I thought that was so, another thing that was so cool. Don't mind me rambling.
Oh, no.
Another thing that was so cool was like how that I wasn't a, I guess I didn't think of, was the art scene was like people were on edge to find that, to secure that authenticity, to confirm it, because there was post World War II and the Nazis were stealing art, and there was like all sorts of forgeries going on, because who could say, who knows if the real one is in a Nazi's basement somewhere?
Right.
Who knows that? Who's to say that? And I'm like, that's so crazy how there's like a whole underground a forgery ring because of the tragedy. It's something that it's like a result or a consequence that I just
Mhm.
didn't think of. I'm like, that makes so much sense though.
Yeah,
'Cause I've heard about Nazis like confiscating a lot of stuff from people, like high value stuff. But I was like,
absolutely.
I guess I didn't take it a step further to and the implications of that, of the aftermath of that, and
Yeah.
how there would be people taking advantage of that. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, and some of those troves came back onto the market earlier, but some didn't. This is
Mm,
73, and that was World War II, and yet they were
yeah.
still having the market flooded here and there with an authentic trove, maybe forgeries in it as well, and everybody was on edge. But another really interesting that I found in my research, which I loved, was back in the 70s, art was classified by insurance purposes still under marine cargo, and it didn't cachet and elevated values until money came back into the global market in the 1980s, and people wanted to
Mm,
park their money places, and they started parking it in art, because we know of art as a man for 100 million, and that was just picking up pace in the 70s, but really in the 80s. So that was another kind of interesting aspect of the whole thing of how we regard art.
yeah, it's fascinating. There's just so many layers to the big names, but we could go back to and the little details you found out, like how the investigators, it was like the kind of paint or the
Yes.
brand of paint or the substance makeup of the paint. Oh, it wasn't that kind of paint wasn't common in Picasso's time that he would have painted this. Like that is so meta. That is so like layers upon layers. And I'm like, again, it's just all these components that fit into the big picture that we just don't think about. So that's why like when I read some of these details, and I love how you also balance that to make it part of the investigation, to make it a crucial part of the plot, but not dragging the reader's attention
Mm.
down. Because when I speak to authors and they're like doing all this research, but it's like 2-3 hours of research for lines in their book. So I think that's like a sentiment that I like have sympathy for, because I could imagine how you're like, no, this is all super important.
This chemical analysis of it. No, it's so true. It's
Yeah.
so true. But you know what? That said, though, I always liken research to an iceberg, and 90% is under the surface. But I've got to have that under the surface for you to believe the 10% I put in the book. But I really better not put more than 10%, because then I'm just showing you my research. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a balance with that iceberg.
Absolutely no. Why I appreciate historical fiction so much. I think that's what draws me into it, because it is that delicate balance. And it reminds me of a couple authors, like one I spoke to where she got sucked down a rabbit hole researching makeup for a certain time period, and then it was like one sentence, and she was like, "What? No, you're doing research and it's super fun." So you get sucked in, and then before you know it, you're like, "Oh shit, wait, where was the start this? How can I make you have all this new information that I have?" That's yeah, I love it. We mentioned like a little bit what the characters have to go through. I want to explore like how you navigated. It's not like triggering content, but it could be like sensitive themes that you pull in, because you want to give your characters a growth, and you want to also give readers insight into what they've had to endure. And because I guess the grooming could be considered like maybe a little bit triggering. Like, how did you navigate that, incorporating that into the story, maybe watching, yourself and your brain space, and making sure that you're not getting sucked down too deep into the troubling aspects, the troubling parts of what you're writing and what you're researching.
So I agree with that. First and foremost, I think that the character we're talking about is a narcissist. When I was forming that character and figuring out how he would impose upon people and upon primarily his wife, I started there with that. And then, to be honest, there's a little sociopathy mixed in with that narcissism. And it really came, it's not so different than even talking about a spy, because forgers are duplicities,
Mm.
if you think about it. Like, it is a double world, and in order to believe you can do that and do that brilliantly, there's an egotism, and so I really just explored that, and then took it honestly to the next level. What does that narcissism and egotism mean? It means that you might not have guardrails on your behavior. And I don't think he does. Yes, but I want to say while it can be disconcerting to read about, I also think that is an aspect of human nature that is real. There are people like that. And they could be
Yeah.
spies, they could be forgers, they could be, I don't know. But he wasn't to create, to be honest. I don't know him, but he was easy to imagine. I just kept taking
Yeah.
the next step. What would he do next? What would he believe about himself and about his purpose and about the beauty he was creating? It's
Yeah.
all about the beauty he's creating. And then yet all the time, it's not his own work. It's somebody else he's mimicking. It's a really interesting sort of.
Yeah, like, how do you explore, like, this, like, that's like a psychiatrist, like, little project there because
It really
it's
felt like one.
yeah. I love how you put that. It is to compare that, like, in the narcissism, but he's just mimicking, and he's attributing that to himself. "Oh, look how brilliant I am."
Right. It's
As like
such a crazy dichotomy. I'm perfection. He actually says at one point, I have flaws. It's an interesting thing. And yet all the time, it's not authentic work. It is
oh.
it was interesting.
I loved how that was also an interesting kind of, like, common theme to look at because Lily is secretly has been privately studying and practicing art for years, and it is like a passion of hers. It's like her little it's like such a huge part of her, and she's very like there may be 3 or 4 people in the entire world know about what she's been doing. But yeah, it's like she was just holding that very close.
Yeah.
But eventually, like that's part of her growth is like she's finding herself through that, and she
Yeah.
goes through such huge. She takes huge leaps. That's directly like through the art. And the art reflects on her and how she approaches it and how she uses it to define. She's kind of, what am I doing? Who am I?
Yes.
Whether she's aware of it or not, it's like almost her coming of age, and I love the idea of she was finding herself through art, or art was such a vehicle for her, whereas, heartbreakingly for Anna, it didn't happen that way for her,
No.
and
Right.
and then also if you look at he's got a totally messed up way to he's not doing expressing himself through art, and it's like such a cool like backdrop, a fun way. Okay, let's peel back the layers. Like look at characters and how art is almost like its own character
Yes.
and how
Absolutely.
it's affecting all your characters.
Mhm. I think the creative process, it's so elemental. And so you're right. It either can lock you up or it can open you up. And how it acts on these three primers, and even art, how it acted on the insurance investigator throughout his life, and what he did, its own character within this novel, and how it presses upon people here and there, or helps free them.
I know Connor, he was like so unique. He was almost like he was their worst nightmare. Well, it was like, no, this is exactly the guy that we don't need coming to investigate what's going on right now.
I loved it when
It was
Diana was like,
hilarious.
so you have no background in art. Oh no, yeah, I do. Oh, but you have
Yeah.
no background in police. Oh, yeah, I do. I was like, okay, this is fun.
Because I could tell at the little points where you had fun because that was like such a funny thing because her husband was so confident. He was like, no, we're fine. And because she's depicting him and taking his lead. And then here comes this young, seemingly like fresh. He's like young enough. He's not weathered.
Yeah.
It's very deceptive. But then he's, oh no, I have grown up in a family full of this
Full
profession. And
cops and
I also
detectives
went to
and
study
to the
and
academy. Yeah.
yeah. And it was just like, what? And then of course on Lily's perspective, she's noticing he's broad, he's like slim and he's handsome and he's tall and he's got that air about him like where he's able to school his features, but then he's also less he's charming. I also loved what you put her through where her brother-in-law was like, "No, come in for dinner. Yeah, it's fine." It was perfect. I loved it so much because of course Connor, he's like a gracious like gentleman. He's not gonna turn it down. He's sneaky too. He was sneaky too. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'll walk you home," because he's already on her. He's already onto her, and
Absolutely. He's interested in her as a possible He's watching.
Yeah.
And
And I loved it. I just loved Lily's kind of, because I guess I don't, she's even been very blunt. I'm inaccessible. And I love that was also a very, very telling part because you use other characters to help get to know her.
yeah,
And so she was just very blunt about it. I was also very surprised that she was like, okay, I guess I have no choice but to show you my deepest, darkest, most treasured part
I
of myself. Like
yeah,
I
it was
I
hard to
loved it.
figure out how to happen because obviously he needed to see her studio, but he would have no reason to ask her about it. She would have no reason to show. So I had to catch her.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
had to be awkward where she could not say no. And then to have him pick apart her paintings like that, I was like, ooh, you don't know it, Lily, but you're in trouble. You are in so much trouble.
Yeah, because and also again, he's studied it and he's got the art eye and he's got the investigative eye and
I'll have to say one of my favorite parts was he knew she didn't have the talent. Like that cracked me up. No, you're not that good.
but it that's also insight as to he's seeing her.
Yeah.
He's seeing her. He's because he does make kind of comments because I know I love Patty too, like her friend at the school who helps her get
Yeah.
scrounge her supplies and all that. But where I think he, oh God, what did he was like, you're holding back, kind of, or he was like, why do you only do this?
Yeah.
Like, why do you only do this type of work? Why do you only do? And he even pointed out, oh, but you didn't do this Picasso. It was like the Picasso in question, and the fact that either he didn't see it could be in or like for or against her because it's like, oh, she did do one, but it's not here. It's or she didn't do it because she just didn't do it. It was
Yeah.
like not that was never a thought. So yeah, there was like so many cool little like fun little parts and like juicy little parts. I love it when authors throw their characters into unfamiliar and uncomfortable situations. I eat that shit up and I think I'm just like I'm like,
Here we go.
okay, yes. Yeah, and I feel like for you authors too, you're just like, yeah, okay, what are we gonna do?
How can we mess with him
It's so
today?
it's so fun. I know. And it was so funny because Connor was a little swoony. You made him a little swoony, even though he did like the bare minimum of
He
romance.
did
Like he
the
really like
bare minimum. I know. But I loved that about him. He towed the line. Yeah, bare
he
minimum.
did because obviously he was noticing her and he was paying attention to her. He was keeping an eye on her for certain reasons, but then you could tell like he grew to care about her because he was like because he's telling her he's Lily. You got to go talk to them.
Yeah,
Like you got to go
yeah. You got to go to the police.
I just I there's the romance of it, and then there's just like the discomfort, and then like the oh, what are they gonna do? How where's it gonna go from here? And it was just so fun. I could tell you had fun with that stuff too,
I
because
did.
I was like,
So much fun with it.
yeah, that's so funny. Oh, I always ask this question because I love to see the answers. What were the most challenging parts to write? What were the most enjoyable parts to write?
This is going to surprise you, or maybe it won't. Diana's chapters were the most enjoyable for me to write. They were fun. There was just a level of cat and mouse and duplicity and power
Yeah.
and hiddenness and pain. And they were just, that was like the ultimate cat and mouse game, those chapters. She was really easy to write, to be honest. And I think it's got a very good mental picture of the forces that were pressing upon her. I just felt like
Mm,
she was almost like she presented the image of a diamond. How was this diamond formed? This diamond was
yeah.
formed under immense pressure, and to peel back that pressure was interesting. It was just interesting as an author, the whole psychology of it. So, in many ways, that was the most fun to write. I think the most challenging write for me was that balance between, as discussed at the very beginning, that balance between the childhood incident and how it affected Lily, Daisy, and how to strike that note properly. How would the mother perceive what happened? Because I love that scene where the mom to her, and basically I don't give much away here, but she says, "How?" And then she also says, "It's my fault that you did this, but how dare you?" and we won't tell you what she's talking about. But it broke my heart because in so many ways she's been trying to protect her daughter, but then she also sees how by not addressing things and being honest about things and upfront about things, she's also in many ways harmed her daughter, never meaning to, but never saying, my life is rich, my life is good. Hey, what this whole thing you've got going on is unnecessary. Because we let these things play out without understanding their full consequences. And I think that was in the most difficult, because these people were surviving. In many ways, they're thriving, but life could be better for them if they could understand each other's perspective. So there you go.
Yeah, it was I could appreciate that struggle and that the care that you took in, cuz mending that relationship and bringing not just with her and her mother, but her and her sister too, because
Yeah.
it touched all of them obviously, but it was so heartbreaking because it's you feel for all of them on different
Yes.
levels.
That's
And
exactly. There's no villain there. You felt for all of them. Yeah.
it just makes me reflect on oh gosh, what if I was in that situation? Or what if that happened? But yeah, it's a lot of really tough and deep situations like that in literature and books. You can't help but see, put yourself in that situations and have sympathy for them and have how much of for a life changing event like that affect them all. And
Mhm.
poor Lily, because of course she blames herself, and it's like she's been trying to make up for it or trying to ask the situation, all the challenges that come after that, and then Daisy's just I felt for her, but I also, as I say, at the same time, it just seemed like her default attitude was just like, ugh, what now, Lily?
You know what? But I would totally agree with that, because I think Daisy's what, 37, 38 in the book. And I think, especially as her own daughters are growing up, I can't live under this weight anymore. Okay, so it's like, what now? How
Yeah,
complicated can you make all of this? And it is that sort of fed up perspective of that, because unlike Lily, she does have the kids and the parents, and she's in that middle generation. And yeah, she's gone through her crucible, and she's like, "Can you please get through yours, please?
yeah.
I'd like everybody to grow up here."
And then she's like, "What? Let us help you. Be like, kind of like you have to have an exchange here. You can't expect to take care of us and to try to like insist on things without getting that back and forth, like without letting us insist on other things too. Because it's like how what Lily, where would she have ended up had she let them in a little bit sooner? Where she, but
Yes.
it took something dramatic and freedom threatening for her to make that step, I guess. I don't so I know. I just appreciate like I always say, I appreciate the good characters and the bad characters too, because I felt for Diana, and I felt she's not like bad, but
Oh,
without being
and
spoiled. Try not to be spoiler, but
exactly.
yeah,
But I
she's just
agree. And I wanted that to be
mhm,
part of her character, was this situation that she too finds herself in.
yeah. Yeah, and it's she's not completely free of blame, but at the same time, it's you I just had the sympathy for her because she's a pawn and she went along with it, and she was trying to hold on to that status, and she was trying to make something of herself and trying to stay ahead of the game, and she got she was being swallowed realizing it, and she was in way over her head by the end of it, and it was just yeah, I felt for her. There you go, Catherine, making me tugging at the heartstrings, because yeah, it's also again like a sentiment of how you were saying that it's we could still relate to it. We could still identify those
Yeah.
feelings. Absolutely. Because it reminds me of I had read Book Club for Troublesome Women by Marie
Oh,
Bostwick
yeah.
before I started yours. And it was also like historical women's fiction again, where it was the book club as they started. Their first book was it was around the time when the Feminine Mystique came
Mhm.
out. So it was when that shook the world, the society as they know it. The women were I like understanding, oh no, it's okay that I'm feeling this way. It's not
Mhm.
it's okay to identify this and to recognize this and okay to want more. And but It was I because I felt with that, and I felt I relate to the characters, and then I was like, okay, I needed a moment, and then when I started yours, and I was like, I didn't get a good breather in between the relating to the characters and the heart stories and the
Yeah.
like where it's just really sucking in, and I'm connecting with the characters and I'm feeling for them. I didn't get a break between you two. What do you hope readers